And I love you.
There?
In Hollywood?
Why not?
Okay, so picture this. A man is standing on the side of a road in New Orleans, watching his own fiancé drive away, and he can't even get a flight out of the country because there aren't any left that day. That actually happened. And the wildest part isn't even that moment. It's what he said weeks later when someone point-blank asked him if they were still together. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He basically shrugged it off and started talking about some new project with what he called a highly respected professional cast, which, if you know anything about how these shows work, is about as close to publicly dissing your own network as you can get without saying their name. We're getting into all of it. But first, let's rewind, because the road to that roadside breakdown did not happen overnight. And honestly, once you see the pattern, you're going to understand exactly why Debbie's friends were using words like alarming. So here's the deal. Mido moved from Egypt to New Orleans to be with Debbie. Big move, right? Leaving your whole life behind for love. That's the whole premise of this franchise. Except almost immediately, Mido's priorities looked a little different than build a life with my fiancé. The guy wants to be a movie star. Not eventually. Not as a fun side goal. Immediately. Within days of landing in America, he's asking Debbie how far it is to Hollywood, and when she tells him it's basically a cross-country drive, he doesn't drop it. He tells her point blank that she should just move. Not, let's talk about it somewhere down the line. Move. Now. To be clear, ambition is not a crime. Wanting a career is not a red flag by itself, but Debbie's reaction says everything because she goes on camera and says she genuinely doesn't know if Mido came to America for her or for the opportunity, and that if the acting thing doesn't pan out, she's not sure he stays. That's not a small worry. That's a woman quietly bracing herself for the possibility that she's a stepping stone. And look, if that was the whole story, it'd already be a solid episode. But this is 90 Day Fiancé, so of course it gets worse. The moment that really lit the fuse wasn't even about Hollywood. It was about a truck. I'm serious. Mido wanted Debbie to film a video of him driving a truck for his social media, and instead, she took photos. That's it. That's the spark. And from there, according to what aired, his frustration didn't stay contained to the truck thing. It spilled over into a gathering with Debbie's friends, where he was reportedly cold, dismissive, clearly checked out, and when someone tried to bring up his attitude, he made it clear he did not care what anyone there thought of him. Now, if you're Debbie, watching your fiancé be openly rude to the people who love you in your own home turf, that's not a great look. But it's what happened next that turned this from awkward night into producers had to step in territory. Debbie ends up crying. And instead of getting anything that looks like comfort, Mido reportedly turns it around on her, essentially telling her she has nothing to be upset about, since he's the one who left everything behind. Everything is on him, so why is she the one falling apart? That's the logic. And her friends, who are still there watching this unfold, don't hold back afterward, saying flat out that they didn't like the way he spoke to her, and one of them specifically says it made her worry about what happens when there's no camera around. Sit with that for a second. That's not, he was a little short with her. That's a friend, watching in real time, saying this makes me nervous about what we don't see. That's a heavier accusation than people usually throw around on this show. So what does Debbie do? She's had enough. She tells the producers to book Mido a flight home. Not eventually, immediately. And he can't find one. So there's this almost surreal image of him standing there, freshly kicked to the curb, trying to book a flight out of a relationship he was supposedly building a whole future in, and coming up empty. In his own confessional, he admits Debbie pushed him too far, and according to what he says, part of what set him off was her bringing up photos of him with other women back in Egypt, which he responded to by telling her to. And I'm going to paraphrase this, because I'm not going to give you the exact language, basically telling her to be quiet, and deciding right then that he was done dealing with her at all. His words, not mine. And yeah, it's about as blunt as it sounds. Now here's where you'd think, okay, cooling off period, they talk, maybe there's an apology, maybe there's growth. That is not what happens. When they do sit down again, Mido reportedly does not take responsibility for his side of any of it. Instead, he tells Debby it's on her to fix things between them, or he is going back to Egypt. Read that again. He is not saying, let's fix this together. He's saying, fix it, or I leave. That's not a conversation. That's an ultimatum dressed up as patience. And when Debby, trying to hold on to something, tells him she loves him, his response is not warmth. It's closer to sarcasm, brushing her off and telling her to stop saying it so much. If someone told you they loved you and your instinct was annoyance, that tells you something about where your head actually is. And this is where Debby's own daughter, Devin, steps in, because apparently she's watching all of this unfold and she is not staying quiet about it. She sits Debby down and tells her she has real concerns about this relationship continuing. And look, this is a 6-year relationship we're talking about. This isn't some fling, so Debby's instinct is to defend it, saying she's not going to throw away 6 years on a whim. Which, fair, nobody wants to torch something they've invested that much time into. But Devyn's counter is the part that should sting a little, because she points out that this isn't actually a whim. They've been struggling for months. And worse, they don't even have the luxury of taking their time, because there's a 90-day clock ticking on a K-1 visa marriage. That's the cruelty of this whole format. You don't get slow, careful decision-making time. You get a countdown. So where does that leave us? Debby, by her own admission, still isn't sure Mido even loves her, but she also says she hasn't reached the point where she's ready to call it off completely. She's stuck in that place a lot of people know way too well, where you can see the red flags clearly. You can even say them out loud to your own kid, and you still aren't ready to walk. That's not weakness, by the way. That's just how hard it actually is to leave something you've built for years, even when the person in front of you keeps showing you exactly who they are. And that brings us to the part that's actually breaking right now. Weeks of near silence from both of them online. Fans start speculating, is this over? Are they done? What happened? And someone finally just asks him directly, straight up, are you and Debby still together? And Mido's response is not a yes. It is not a no. It is this almost dismissive redirect where he basically says he's not worried about any of that. He's already done his part, he filmed what he needed to film, and whatever the network chooses to air with it is on them, not him. And then, almost as a flex, he mentions that he's currently working on something else, something with what he calls a highly respected professional cast. Now, you can read that 100 different ways, but a whole lot of fans read it exactly one way, as him quietly taking a shot at the very show that made him a name in the first place. So here's my actual take. I don't think this is a guy who's confused about what he wants. I think this is a guy who's been telling you what he wants the entire time, and we just kept hoping the relationship part would win out over the ambition part. The truck video over the photos, that wasn't really about a truck. It was about control over his own image, before it was ever about control over the relationship. And when Debby's friends said they were worried about what happens behind closed doors, I don't think that was dramatic. I think that was the most honest read of the whole season so far. So I want to know what you think. Do you think Mido actually loves Debby, or do you think she's a means to an end, a green card and a launch pad wrapped into one relationship? Tell me in the comments, because I have a feeling this fandom is split right down the middle on this one. And if you want the full story on what's happening with Mallory and Rashid right now, because that one just took a turn nobody saw coming, that video's coming up next, so make sure you're subscribed for that one.